panelists who are here. Before we dig in and do introductions, just a bit of housekeeping. We've got the chat open. Feel free to introduce yourselves. We've got the Q&A. So if there's things that you would just love, sort of perspective from fellow educators or questions for the Autodesk team at Certiport, feel free to put those in the Q&A or in the chat. Yeah, and we'll get started. So this is our integrating Autodesk certifications into your manufacturing curriculum webinar. We were inspired when we originally made this by the Manufacturing Day initiative in the United States, though it is spreading to other countries, where October in particular, when this webinar originally was going to take place, using it to raise awareness of sort of all the rich opportunities that are in manufacturing related careers, and all of the work that's also being done by fabulous educators like those we have here to really get students excited about and prepared for those sorts of careers. So it's something we're excited to participate in in Manufacturing Day and Manufacturing Month, really for the first time this year. So if any of you also have ideas for things you think we should do next year, in-person events are a big hit for Manufacturing Day too. Let us know, because we're already sort of getting excited and planning that. And so now I guess we'll meet our panelists. So I don't know if perhaps we just start with you each want to introduce yourselves and the type of institution you're at, what's going on there, and the courses that you personally teach. And why don't we start with John? Do we want to start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. I'm John Beal. I teach engineering at Alan D. Nease High School at the Stellar Academy of Engineering in Ponte Vedra Beach, which is just south of Jacksonville. It's not actually on the beach, even though that's in the name. So it's a high school. And I teach Introduction to Engineering and Design, Computer Integrated Manufacturing, and Civil Engineering and Architecture.
Awesome. And do you get students all 4 years in your classes, or do you mostly have upperclassmen?
We have two engineering teachers in our academy. So I teach the freshmen and the juniors, and the other teacher teaches the sophomores and the seniors. So it works really well.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Well, and Scott, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about your sort of situation?
Yeah, I also teach engineering. We're kind of in a unique situation where I'm with Neo City Academy. We're a STEM magnet school, public STEM magnet, just south of Orlando, Kissimmee, Florida. One of the biggest things on our engineering, we use the same as what John kind of explained, is the PLTW system. But we're kind of in a unique situation to where we co-teach all our classes. So where a student may have as a matter of record, that's your teacher, both of us teach it. So I actually work with 9th through 12th. We went away from the pathway, the Project Lead the Way pathway program, and we're utilizing Applied so that we can actually teach all the classes that we want to teach. So we start out the same kind of thing, an introduction class, principles of engineering with DE, digital electronics. Then we switch over to allow the students to pick and choose. So they do civil engineering and architecture, aerospace engineering, environmental sustainability, or computer integrated manufacturing. And then their 4th year is a capstone project that they work on. So.
That's awesome. And your institution is very new, right? Like within the last.
We've actually been in existence. This is our 5th year, and it'll be our 3rd actual graduating class.
Super exciting. Awesome. And then I think last but not least, Courtney, do you want to speak a bit about yourself and your institution, which is a very unique one I'm excited to feature?
Yeah, sure. So welcome everybody. My name is Courtney Guidry. I'm with the New Orleans Career Center. So we are a nonprofit. We're also fairly new. This is only our 6th year of programming. We partner with currently 21 high schools within the district. So if you don't know, New Orleans is 100% charter school. So that could be 20 plus different districts. So a lot of logistics go in place, but we mainly serve juniors and seniors. We do have a couple high-flying sophomores. We have various pathways. The one I don't currently teach. I'm 100% out the classroom with this job title, whatever. But I help to build out both here and at a former high school our engineering and manufacturing department. So throughout my years, I've taught Intro to Engineering Design, civil architecture, advanced manufacturing, and engineering design and development, along with some dual enrollment classes through the University of New Orleans. We also do something pretty cool, or we're trying it out this year, with a lot of cross-curricular collaboration between our engineering and manufacturing trainees and our building trades pathway, just for them to learn from each other and see how that goes. So I'm going to say it's a pilot. I'll talk about it in next year's panel and tell you how it goes, but
That's what I
that's
was
where we
about
are
to
now.
say.
Yep.
We'll get everyone together next year and we can hear how your pilot went.
Yep.
We'll be on the
It's good
fourth
so far.
graduating class of Scott's school.
Yep.
So it sounds like you've all got exciting things going on at your institutions, and also 3 pretty different types of institutions, which is what we were hoping for when we were, picking the friends we wanted to get together for today's purposes. I think we will start, maybe talk a little about certification in particular. I know that some of the folks who are attending today and tuning in today, they're very specifically interested in implementing that. But then we will also, after that, sort of zoom out and talk about all the other neat things you guys are doing in addition to certification to sort of excite and prepare students. You guys already alluded to several of them, so I'm excited to dig in. But yeah, we'll start off with learning a bit about how Autodesk software and certification is implemented at your institution or in your classroom. Courtney, do you maybe want to speak to that first?
Sure. So our focus starts with mechanical. And so the first certification that trainees earn or they're working towards is Inventor. And then from there, we kind of allow trainees to go more into or dive deeper into what may interest them more. And that's where they kind of divide more and either do a AutoCAD focus or a Revit focus. And so we would love to offer more, but that's where we are as far as enrollment goes. Also, instructors with expertise are not always easy to come by. And so that's, basically where we are. Typically, we have trainees who come in with 0 experience, 0 exposure. We're lucky if they're coming in on grade level as far as like math competencies go. Some are super overachievers and, those are wonderful. And oftentimes they are the ones to really push the others across the finish line and support. They become, I'm just a facilitator in the room. They really become the instructors and they're learning in real time from their neighbor, which I think is the beauty of all Inventor software. There's not always one path to get to the end solution, right? In any sort of engineering, but to take the test and pass it in a certain time frame, oftentimes there's a more efficient way to do it. And so we start talking about that day one and, really holding them accountable as far as processing best test taking skills, but also efficiency in doing a job. And so, we would all love endless amounts of time to create our best work, but that's just not reality. And that's not reality in school, and it's not reality in industry either. So, yeah, we start talking about that. We also talk about our classrooms and our certifications as a safe place to fail. And I don't mean fail in life or fail the test, but engineering is about iteration. And if you got it 100% perfect the first time, give me a while because I'm going to break it and show you why it's not perfect the first time and what you could do to improve it. And, in that practice, it's like, hey, let's talk about redesign and have your partner, add in comments and feedback. So it's really day one of class. We talk certification and we talk the importance, but it's also, all those other skills that are embedded along the way. Taking the fear out of it, really, because it is an industry certification and a lot of these trainees are not in, they haven't been in industry yet. So, yeah, I'm curious what the guys do.
And feel free to, thank you for sort of digging into that. I've got, whether we get into my follow-up questions today or offline, because I you guys are doing interesting things at your institution. Scott or John, feel free to dig in.
Yeah, we actually go through 4 different certifications here. So our freshmen, it's an intro class, so we do a lot of the design process. We're getting the same thing. We're kind of getting students that have no clue to what engineering even looks like, and to students that are the overachievers. But we start out with our freshmen. They're learning web-based, so a lot of their information's off of that. They're starting to learn on Canvas. So everything that we work with, we start out with Fusion 360. So we get them started in Fusion. They can collaborate, they can work together, and we're also got them set up because at our school we have the 4 pathways. So you have engineering, you have bio design, you have cybersecurity, AI, and we're actually adding in environmental resources is a new one we're doing. But those students will actually work together on projects. So they actually can go through and they'll come to one of the students in the engineering class and they'll start working on stuff. Or with the advent, the ability to get onto Autodesk as a student, as a user, they'll jump into Autodesk even for the other pathways and they'll start learning it. And then we do a thing, we have one of our blocks that we do here is called research, and it allows them to work on projects. It allows them to go in and do reassessment for other classes, kind of what Courtney alluded to. Basically, it's never right the first time. You always have to come back. It's reiteration and changes. So it gives them a chance to come in and work on it, and then see that the pathways, while I'm bio or I'm engineering, they're not so different. They actually get a chance to look at that. And then by the time they get into materials and processes in the principles class, now we're starting to look at Inventor. So we're looking at not only being able to build those parts and put those things together and CAD them, but we're looking at being able to animate, being able to run analysis programs and see how they work together, how they build, and what happens after 10, 15 runs of bending that piece back and forth, that it's going to fail. And you see it. So you can actually see it happen. By the time they hit their junior year, that's when we're breaking them apart. They're actually getting to kind of delve into specifics. So our sim class is starting to work with CAD CAM. Our aerospace is doing more in depth in AutoCAD. Our electronics is playing a little bit in the AutoCAD as well. And then our civil engineering classes are all in Revit. So by Christmas, usually most of them, because of the projects, because everything we do here, it's inquiry and project based. So we'll give them, dangle that carrot in front of them and let them go. Let them use their own imagination of what they're doing and really explore the software to see what they can do with it. So our civil engineering does a residential project. They actually talk to faculty member here as their client, and they design a home. And of course, they want to go way out here with it and then reel them back in and say, no. You can't do what they want. It's a Habitat for Humanity. You got to bring it back in. You can only build it by this much square footage. It has to be this property. But they get to look at codes. They get to actually take a little bit further and see just what the program and the softwares are capable of doing.
That's awesome. And thank you for walking us sort of through that progression. I do have a quick follow-up question. I know that you said that you sort of start the students in Fusion 360. And then when it comes to their capstones, do students they have sort of free reign to choose what they do? Do they find themselves?
They have basically, they can go through it. They have to develop their problem. So they literally, it's the engineering design and development class, which is actually migrating on a project lead the way to capstone. Right now it's just under engineering, but next year we're going to start piloting it where that class will have members of all the other pathways in it. And what they'll end up doing is they choose the software. And one of the nice things about Autodesk software is the fact that I can build something in Fusion or I can build something in Revit. I can then import it into one of the other software. So if I'm building designing say a recreation center, I can design what tables, chairs, pool tables are going to look like in Inventor, bring those in as a family and use that furniture to do a rendering. And one of the things that we've done competition before in our CE class at the end in their civil project, and have them take a picture of something and they have to recreate it and then put the two up side by side and let the class figure out which one was the picture and which one is the rendered image of a room.
That's all. Between that and the Rube Goldberg project you're doing that we were talking about prior to the webinar starting, I feel like you're really capturing the sort of competitive spirit in a fun way that your students have.
Yeah, best part is the students taking ownership, and because it's their project, it's what they want to do. They're willing to go in and play with the software, realizing, like we said, you're not going to break it. The worst you're going to get, blue screen, start over. You know, the rule of thumb, it's on the wall. It says save and save often.
Yes, always. Should probably say that above their screens. Well, John, would you like to talk a little about sort of how Autodesk software and the certifications are implemented at your institution?
Absolutely. So, a lot of similarities to what Scott and Courtney said. I think the big difference for us is sort of the order that we do them in. So we do AutoCAD with our freshmen, and then Inventor with our sophomores, and then junior year they split. They either can do civil engineering and architecture or computer integrated manufacturing. That was something we added into kind of how we did our academy last year. If they do civil engineering, then they do Revit. What we're trying this year for those that went into do the manufacturing is we're going to try and see if we can get them the AutoCAD professional certification. And then fourth year, they do Fusion 360.
Awesome, thanks for sharing that. And we do have some, the high achieving high schools who have sometimes just individual students who are like, please let me get the professional certification. Just let me try it. So it's always cool to see that that sort of enthusiasm about it. I know that we're going to wind up digging into sort of advice and insights you guys have about sort of teaching your subjects more broadly. But when it comes specifically to preparing students for certifications, that element of your courses, are there sort of particular aspects of your approach that you have found to be particularly successful, whether it's certain resources or just certain ways that you go about preparing your students for the exams that you think is worth sharing with fellow educators? And John, maybe I'll just let you go first because you're the biggest on my screen right now. So go for it.
Yeah. So the process that we use, and both me and the other engineering teacher use kind of the same process. We use Solid Professor as the initial training software because it has video tutorials. For me, especially in my freshman class where I've got 35 students, I can't physically help them all individually one by one. So having those video tutorials that are short and just cover like snippets that they can follow along, they can work through and see the same thing on their screen, really helps immensely with that. And it's also really good because we're an honors class, but we have a lottery system to get into the academy. So the achievement levels vary, especially freshman year. And so having a resource where, if you're struggling and you need to see it 10 times, you can keep rewatching the video, or if you can watch it on double speed and get it in one go, that's fine too. Then we use Gmetrics kind of in the month leading up to certification. So Gmetrics is practice tests. They mimic the real test really well. They're an excellent tool to make sure students are ready, or if they're weak in like one specific area, it helps highlight that so they can focus on that and be prepared. The only thing that I do differently out of any of the classes for the freshmen, I also do a weekly technical drawing. So it's basically like a little, like one blueprint of an object so they can get used to sort of dimensioning processes, proper dimensioning styles. And then also the ones that I use for that, they all have errors in them or they're missing information. So they have to kind of figure out from what's there, the other pieces they need. So it gets them used to that problem solving, gets them used to trying different attempts, and builds in some resilience kind of right from the start.
So that's a great sort of example of the sort of assignment that can build those skills that students are going to need for the exams, but also just for life and for work. Let's see, Scott, would you want to talk a little about sort of what you do specifically in regards to preparing for certification?
We actually, the same thing. We used to use a Solid Professor as well. But when we ended up being only one of two schools in the district that were sitting there, the site license became a little over the top for us. So we actually ended up, after certified last year, or actually this past summer, We got some corrections made. There were some errors and things in the original LearnKey software that were missing. So we had went through and did a lot of work online prior to the start of school this year, piloting and getting some of the stuff fixed and getting it updated. And our students this year are actually ahead of where they should have been on certification. So we've been using the LearnKey software, which gives them examples, gives them prototype, does the same thing, little snippets. But the nice thing that we ran into it is it's linked to geometrics. So same thing as you do, John, utilizing the geometrics to do the practice test because it's immersive. It puts them in the software. They're being able to see a little more. And the nice thing is because the LearnKey is tied to it, when they take those practice tests, it actually ties them back into it. So they can actually go back and do a lesson directly related to what they were on. And it's helped tremendously this year. The other part is everything that we do on our classes has something to do with CAD. So constantly it's being reinforced in class as well. And we continually update. For advanced classes, we actually kind of added in the LearnKey a little bit. It was kind of over the top. But a lot of them, because they're already used to tutorials, they're already used to video systems, we've actually been using the Autodesk learning site. So they've actually been going in because a lot of those are actually done by the engineers and software designers that put the program together. The one thing we don't tell them though, is most of the stuff that we've linked in there for them to go to, that they log into, is actually for the professional certification, not the user, but they're getting it done. So when they get to the test, we're having some of the higher scores coming back on the test when they actually go test in December. So they're going back and they're realizing, I can do all these stairwells and I can come in and do rails, and that wasn't even on the test. So why did I do that? Because now you can leave school and you've got an internship. We've got some sophomores right now that are actually juniors now. They were sophomores last year, that based on their scores now, they actually got internships to work with some of our architectural firms here locally. And the best part is they're paid. And then they're being paid as an internship. They're not even in college yet. And here's a college student coming in that's working with them. That's on a, no, you're still in college. You're not graduated yet. You don't get paid yet. So try and explain that one to them. But that's been the best thing for us is that whole thing, like I said, developing those projects and giving them a chance to actually see how to use it as opposed to just going with a tutorial. Now design it on your own, see what you can do with it.
Thank you for walking us through that. And I know that for some folks who are unfamiliar, we will definitely include in the email and the description links to the learning products that you and John have both talked about. Because you're right that obviously with geometrics, our practice test, the ability to be live in the app the way that you're going to be with the actual exam and just in your day-to-day. And then with products like LearnKey that are integrated with it. And thank you actually for the shout out to Autodesk's free resources, which I was definitely going to forget to mention, because you'd be surprised how many teachers are unaware of the amazing resources that Autodesk has built and that they're always sort of working to expand.
And then one other one I just thought of too that goes shout out to you guys is the new Certiport Cloud. We actually got approved to do it as a pilot this year. So our testing in December is going to be on the cloud. So we'll see how that goes.
So Compass Cloud, that's the ability to deliver Certiport exams, without your sort of locally installed Compass, which when we announced it at the Certified Conference this summer, there was literally just like raucous cheers because all the teachers are so excited for just that sort of next super exciting phase of our offering. So we will send, I believe we're still in beta, but we'll send that information in case anyone here wants to get their school in the beta. Thanks. Courtney, would you like to share a bit about how, I know you've talked a little about how certification works at your institution, but are there anything that you guys you think works?
Yeah, it's kind of a mashup between both John and Scott. We've used Solid Professor in the past. We use geometrics practice test. We have used LearnKey at some point. Through the pandemic, when we had to pivot to virtual, we realized that, you know, not all of our trainees could attend at the same time. Not all of them, you know, some needed extra help on certain parts or certain aspects, certain components. And so myself and another instructor, you know, we created this whole, I feel like it's our own learning management system, whatever, with videos of just random things around our houses, how to 3D model a colander or a can opener, or things that students would recognize from just being in our homes. And so we still use those as extra projects. It's like, because we have some high flyers that finish, you know, assignments or whatever. And while we try to make it work at your own pace, it's like we don't want them to go through the whole curriculum while we're still on part one with some. So we add in, and we basically leveled those different parts and different components because we know the different skill levels it takes. And that's been really helpful. And I'm sure, you know, John and Scott both have those as well. But we also target the different skills that they would need to do for the inventor certification or whatever certification it is. I think it was in conversation before, Rosie, we also, you know, hone in on time. And so we don't start talking about how fast 50 minutes for the test can go, you know, the day before they take the test. We talk about that day one of class, and we start trying to practice. So, right, it's like we don't take the training wheels off day one, but it's a gradual thing to where they ramp up their speed over a given amount of time. And so it makes me think back to like how we used to do time tests for like multiplication drills. It's kind of that, because it is repetition, doing these skills over and over, and you just get faster and more confident with where to click and how to do it. And so we really we try to have those types of skills, and it's, you know, it's fun because the kids think of it not as a relay race, but it's definitely timed, and they're seeing quick progress. We also have trackers. So we have digital trackers. We have an online grade book, if you want to call it that. We also have visuals in the classroom, and it becomes not only a tracker for them to self-assess where they are, it also shows the leaders in the room who to go to if you are struggling on a certain aspect. Those are your points. Those are the guys to go to before you come to me. But it's also a way, you know, they celebrate each other. And so we have both a morning section and an afternoon section. Trainees who never necessarily cross paths, but they may go to the same school. And so they're celebrating their schools, they're celebrating their other classmates. It's really a cool thing to see that they're, you know, they're cheering each other on, and they're trying to bring up everybody who may be lower. Like, hey, we're going to move this as a class. It's not just a one-man thing, which is really aligned to industry, because you're only as good, you know, as the whole team. And so, yeah, we try to build in, we don't call them soft skills, we call them power skills, that it is all about teamwork, and everybody has a role, and we want to move this, you know, as a whole group. So.
Awesome. I love the idea of the students sort of learning from each other, but also cheerleading for each other, even the students they don't actually know.
And some trainees show me, I've been doing this for a long time, and they'll show me a way that I had never seen that before, and it worked. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. Learning never dies, guys. Every day you can learn something.
And I love that you highlight the sort of efficiency aspect. I mean, Scott, you know, just gave the example of his students, you know, high school students who just got hired by a local, you know, firm. I guarantee that firm appreciates how fast the students work. You know, and we have professionals who take these exams and who have been using the software for many years, and obviously they know the stuff that's on it, but they're like, I have to like work a little faster than I usually do, or I realize I'm not doing things the most efficient way, clearly. So it's good that you're sort of emphasizing that from day one, that there's value in the efficiency. And I guess if you go, unless there's other sort of certification specific things, I feel like I want to sort of zoom out and give you a chance to talk about other things as well. feel free to keep talking about certification too. But I know that each of your institutions, in the institution, in your area, and then also in your classroom has some other really neat things going on to help to get students interested in and prepared for careers in manufacturing. We know that there's jobs there, really interesting ones and fast growing ones. So what else is going on in your area to get students interested?
So my role has really shifted outside the classroom and into, I think my current iteration of a title is Director of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeships and all that falls underneath there. So we know certification, that is checking a box for us, and that is validated by industry and, get your foot in the door. But we really embed a ton of guest speakers, site visits. We don't even call them field trips because we want to align to industry. Pathway days, which may look like career days to some, but it also includes some union stuff for that group. As I mentioned, we do a lot of crossover between building trades and engineering and manufacturing, because often in the real world, those worlds intersect repeatedly, and you need to know how to work with each other, and you learn from both sides. And the more you know about both sides, the more employable you are. So we do a lot of crossover with that team. But yeah, there's a ton of mentoring. We also partner with ACE Mentors of America. So if you don't know about them, look into them. Check and see if they are in your area or if they have a chapter nearby. But those industry professionals, we started out last year with 5 trainees. They were just our second year cohort. This year we're up to like 40, I think it is. And we asked for a second group of mentors. So I think we're up to like 12 or 15 mentors, and they come every other week, once a week. And they spend the 2-hour block with the trainees. And it starts out as a huge overview about industry, but then they end up guiding them on a year-long design project. And the trainees are creating a model. They're using all the different cool tools and equipment in our fabrication lab. And they're also learning, right beside some of these mentors. And it can be anything from if they're designing or redesigning a building to the zoning laws that, I don't know, and like what drainage is needed for a certain type of property. And it can be something super high level. And then others are 3D modeling what would be a Ferris wheel because they want to design an amusement park. And so it's all over the place. It is 100%, the ideas are 100% student led. So you end up with some amusement park type things. But it is very much that mentor piece we have found incredibly beneficial, because we talk every day about how important the certification is, but hearing it from somebody who's living it and doing it daily is huge. And so they, not that they come with more street cred, but that's how the students see it. And some have been awarded scholarships through the different companies that these people work for, or some go off to college and then are offered internships while they're in college, paid internships so that's always a benefit. So yeah, it's a great partnership, and I encourage, that's just one. There's many that exist, but check out the industry in your area. What is in demand? Because people want to get in front of these trainees. They do. And so you work with your workforce people in your community or city, because they will back you up and validate whatever certification you're working towards. And, trainees need to hear that. We need to hear that as educators. So I can't stress that enough. That's a huge part of what we do.
That's awesome. And I will definitely include a link to the ACE Mentors resource, because that sounds like something that our folks will be interested in, and that I think Certiport folks are going to be interested in as well. I obviously saw lots of smiling and nodding from our friends Scott and John. So Scott, would you like to maybe talk about the other neat things that your institution is doing? I feel like we've got definitely some common
Yeah,
themes
well,
going.
the ACE Mentor is definitely there. I've got 3 students that their freshman year, contrary to some other students, they decided I'm going to do it anyway. And of course, they ran into a couple of my former students from other schools and all, with some of the engineering and some of the architectural firms here. And they've actually continued with that to where they're actually helping out now with ACE Mentor, those that have graduated and those that are still in the program. One of my seniors who graduates this year, he spent time all this summer with Gil Bain, working with a site for one of our new schools that's being built here in Osceola County. And he just got picked up now through that ACE Mentor program. They had a meeting where a bunch of the architects that are working with the schools in our county recognized him. And Sankura, who's actually building our new building, because we're actually in the middle of an expansion. Next year we will reopen and double our size. So he's been going after school now to work. He leaves my classroom, basically, has his vest, has his hard hat, walks right through the fence. Everybody else is getting in their cars to leave. He's walking through the gate to go over and do an afternoon internship, working and walking through our building with the site inspectors as they're putting together our new building. We've got a couple of kids from our electronic systems. One of the big things here at Neo City is the building across the street from us is a major research and development center for IC electronics, Skywater and iMac. We've got some students that are actually now, based on what they've done in multi-sim and things like that, 2 of their products, and doing some of the electronics in Autodesk. They're actually going across the street now, and they're actually working in those clean rooms to produce wafer systems and IC, and doing some of the testing on some of these ICs in clean room. It's a 120,000 square foot clean room that they're working in. And then, it's just this area that, within 40 miles, you've got the Space Coast, you've got Lockheed Martin's right here. You've got one of the largest developments for simulation and AI technology is right here. And they're hurting. There's that workforce that they're looking for, they keep trying to pull in. And that's what they're pulling from. They're pulling from our schools. We're actually got students right now this will be our 3rd project that's been launched into space with Blue Origin. So, and again, it's making those contacts and getting them in. One of the nice things here is with the school is a lot of our walls are whiteboards, and it's unreal to walk through the school. And, it's not, yes, there's the doodle here and there, but you're walking through and you're seeing electrical circuits. You're seeing complex calculus problems that these kids have been working on or working through, or design elements and ideas that they've put together. And then on top of that, we have our impart rooms, which are like staged lecture halls, mini lecture halls. So bringing in partners from industry, they can't always get away. It's not like it used to be. It's not a, hey, I can leave and go. But in the same instance, by them being at their work location and being able to talk to them, they can walk around in those locations that normally you wouldn't see them, because they can't get away. And now they can, and those areas are closed. You can't go into them. So now they're actually able to go in with a video camera and walk through, and walk as they're talking and answering the students' questions. They're seeing the equipment and things that they'd be working on. So
I love that. Makes it real. Probably it's obviously a great experience for those students, but for example, all the students who go on and learn in that building across the street get to be like, a fellow student built this. You're in it right now every day. Well, it's awesome sort of examples to be able to keep students motivated over the years. Last but not least, John, would you like to talk a little about anything you want to highlight at your institution?
Absolutely. So we're involved with the ACE projects as well, as it seems to be a common thread. We do competitions with TSA. It's a Technical Student Association. Let's see. I do a lot of long-term projects, like quarter-long projects, to get them used to, again, that industry style, the real world side of things, of like, a project's not an hour, it's not 20 minutes, it's not 2 days, it's a long-term thing. You've got to plan for it, and you've got to keep that drive going for an extended period. I would also echo what Scott and Courtney said about, reaching out to the community and making those partnerships and making those pathways. We have absolutely incredible internship programs that we do every year. And again, it leads to careers, it leads to college opportunities. We're really fortunate where Scott, I think, said he was near Lockheed Martin down there. We have Northrop Grumman just down the road from us. So we always have interns at Northrop Grumman in there. They call it a HIT program. It's basically, they start junior year, and if they do well, they kind of keep going all the way through college, sort of. And then it's not directly in the classroom, but I run a transportation technology club that has a lot of overlap with my engineering students. And right now, our big project for that is we're working on an electrothon car. We're trying to get ready for a race in December. So it's basically like an electric go-kart.
That's awesome. I'm going to want to check the results of that when the race happens next month. Awesome. Well, it's fun to see the sort of common threads. I know we don't have tons of time left and you're busy teachers, but there is one other thing we wanted to ask, which is about ways that your programs have changed or that you would like them to change. If you want to talk about the field more broadly in terms of just things that need to change about manufacturing education, that's fine. But the sort of need to keep up with industry is obviously always going to be a part of this work. So we're curious sort of what you're interested in or concerned about.
I think Scott and I were talking earlier with Rosie just about how if you work at a traditional school or a school that teaches subject, math, English, whatever, the more cross-curricular you can do. And I give the example about one of our instructors said every kid in geometry class should be also in a CAD class. The more that you can advocate for that and push for that, and I know oftentimes like we're beating our head against a administrative wall, but the more that you can push for that, the better. It's kids seeing it in real time, and it helps them on both sides have that aha moment of what they're actually doing. And, I could say that for any career in tech ed course, but absolutely for any sort of engineering or design work, it's incredible how it improves your test scores. It improves the quality of the projects and the rigor. It's amazing. So the more that you can get your administrators on board, or if you have complete autonomy, go for it, go rogue. But I always advocate for that. But yeah, I think that would be a huge thing I would push for.
Right on. That's a great example. And I love to feel like maybe we'll gather some examples of schools or educators that have succeeded in getting more of that cross-curricular work. Because the more good examples we have of that, I think it will help other people start to implement it. So we'll be following up, Courtney. How about Scott? Would you like to sort of share anything about what you see on the horizon?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is like that whole thing of being able to keep up with it. It's constantly changing. What we see now, and it's one of the biggest things, fundamental things that we tell our students when they come in to interview before coming to the school, is the careers that you're going to be working in by the time you leave high school, go to college and graduate, are not what you see now. They're going to be different. They're going to advance. And it's only getting the advancements in what we see in technology is exponential. It's only growing faster and faster. So what they see, that we give them the fundamentals that they're, but a lot of it's going to be theirs. It's their motivation, giving them the ownership to be in charge of their own learning. So when you're putting things together, having that problem that's open-ended, that not necessarily nailed down in a lesson plan that here you go, this is what we're doing, but having it set up where it's inquiry driven, where I've given them only a framework, a mild framework, a few criteria constraints, and the rest of it, it's self-discovery. They've got to figure it out. And then once they figure it out, that's going to stay with them from now on. And it's going to give them the emphasis on the fact that, okay, I know this, but I want to know more. And that's one of the biggest things that's helped us out with our engineering design class at the end, where they're actually basically a full year to develop a problem, take that problem, come up with a prototype. Once they get that prototype, test it, retest it, talk to people outside of school, as long as the school district isn't blocking their email, but giving them that access so that they can get what they need to do. And then by the end, they're actually out here doing a marketing plan to market their product. And it makes a difference because now they can really see where this is taken, where it's going to go. And that's one of the biggest things I see out there.
Oh, I love that. And just the having students pursue or like follow their own sort of interests and commit to learning and iterating is a really neat thing to see. And I hope we do see more of it. John, is there a sort of trend or concern you'd like to highlight? What do you see on the horizon?
I would echo a lot of what Scott and Courtney said. One of the things that we do, we're fortunate in that we're pretty well funded, which I know is not the case everywhere. I spent the first half of my career in teaching middle school and scraping for everything, so it's kind of nice to be on the other side of that. But we have 3D printers, we have laser cutters available for the students, and so that's a great application, whether doing AutoCAD. So for when we build bridges, they do the design in AutoCAD, we send it to the laser cutter, cut it out of cardboard, they can build it and test it. For Inventor and Fusion 360, where they're working in 3 dimensions, they can design those parts, then we can 3D print them and see, is it the size you thought it was going to be? Is it going to fit with the other parts that it needs to fit to? Does it work the way that it needs to? Does it have the clearances that it needs and the tolerances that it needs? And really start looking at that, because several of the companies that we have on our advisory board do 3D printing as part of what they do. And granted, it's an industrial, it's metal rather than filament, but there's absolutely parallels to it. And so to be able to say, what you're learning now, you can go from an idea to digital in the computer to a physical product, is the exact same process that right up the road they're doing and getting paid a whole lot more.
That's awesome. And I know something that we often like at Certified, when teachers are having conversations, it's often that sort of advice around, if you do get funding, like here's the sort of things that we found to be worth the money, here's the things that weren't really worth the money. So maybe we'll look into creating more opportunities for people to chat about that. Or here's, did you hear about this funding mechanism? And those sorts of super practical. Yeah. Teachers are resourceful.
I would also echo with that again of building those networks. We were offered through connections that we built through our networking, a 5-foot by 10-foot CNC plasma cutting table, because the company that had it upsized and they didn't need it anymore, so they thought they'd give it away to a school or something. Now, in our case, we don't have the building for it. But just as an example of, some of what's out there, if you make those connections, for that company, it's a tax donation. They don't care. They would rather give it to somebody than just cut it up and throw it in the trash. For us, we're like, are you kidding me? That's more than my car's worth, which isn't a lot, but it's still, it's a big chunk of change. So to be able to have those connections is huge. And also with the cross collaboration, I did a project last year with our drama teacher, because he just started doing a tech theater, which is like set design and all of that. So we worked with his senior level theater kids and my civil engineering kids, and we designed a mini theme park, and we let the students drive what it all was. So it turned into SpongeBob land. But it was cool because the theater kids got to storyboard it. They got to do the set design and the light design for it. And then we were able to take that over to the Revit class, and we were able to create those rides and create the ride buildings in Revit, create the theme park area in Revit, do video walkthroughs and all that. So it was a very fun collaboration.
I don't know that I've ever actually heard of a the sort of engineering drama classes crossover before. I was mostly thinking, you know, the sort of like the English class type of cross-curricular work that, you know, Courtney brought up, but that's another level. That's a really neat example. And of course it somehow became SpongeBob Land. They're still teenagers, even if they're awesome Autodesk certified teenagers. I love it. Well, I do wish I could talk to you guys for hours, because we're so grateful that you guys were willing to lend your sort of time, which we know you don't have a lot of, and expertise, which we know you have tons of, and to take a moment to share your thoughts. I know that we did have some questions, or we had some advice in the chat about certain resources to look into. So TJ, thank you for bringing that up, and I'll put some of the definitely links or resources that you guys mentioned today. I will put those in the follow-up email, just so folks here don't have to necessarily scrub through the recording to try to remember what was that mentorship program called. We will give them the link, and of course the recording itself. So feel free to share it with colleagues who couldn't make it today. Yeah, this will hopefully be one of many sort of community conversations like this. This was so valuable. Thank you so much for sharing with us. All right. Well, on that note, that everyone look out for our follow-up email. We'll also include things about certified. I want to say it 100 times. The certified conference. I'm maybe biased, but it's one of my very favorites. Saw a session by John last year that rocked my world. I met Scott for the first time, and Courtney, we're going to bully her into going this year. So hopefully we'll see some of the rest of you there as well. And session submissions are due November 30th. So we'll put that link in there as well. Put your name in the hat. At a minimum, we'd love to hear what it is you're interested in presenting about, so that if certified doesn't work out, but there's a different conference in your area, we can still talk about areas, opportunities for collaboration. So we hope you'll look into that opportunity. Awesome. Well, in the meantime, thanks so much, everyone. Take care.